All right, we are live. I want to thank everyone for their patience as we got ready for this special call meeting of Columbia City Council. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Good afternoon. We appreciate your patience. Mr. Brennan,
Present.
Mr. Rickerman,
Here.
Mr. McDowell,
Yes.
Mr. Duval, Mr. Vine,
Here.
Mr. Davis,
Here.
Mayor Benjamin.
Here, and I do want to say we've been pleasantly pleased. I want to make sure that that Justin, Erica, that we share with all the council and maybe even with the public some of the data analytics of how many people participated in our last meeting. That even though we're adjusting to this new normal of social distancing, we've had some fairly robust participation and views of the public, seeing us continue to do the work in a very transparent manner. So those of you who may be watching us on the city website or via YouTube or however you're participating right now, please encourage as many citizens as possible to participate in this process. Democracy is alive and well. The city council, city staff, working together with the county, with the state and federal agencies to continue getting the work done on behalf of you. So encourage folks to participate, even if we do it in this new era of social distancing, which hopefully won't last a very long time. I want to encourage everyone, if we're not talking just yet, it might be helpful to mute our phones until we get into active discussion, so we'll reduce background noise a little bit. But Reverend McDowell, if you'd be kind enough to bless us with a word, that would be appreciated.
Yes. Yes, sir. Let us pray. Creator God, for the wonderful moments of grace and new possibilities you've shown each of us, we give you thanks for all things. In this time of uncertainty and anxiety, we ask for your guidance as we consider our beloved city and the residents that are therein. We pray that each member of our city, and particularly those of us who are gathered around computers to discuss the gracious possibilities that are before us, we ask that you might touch us individually and yet collectively. Allow us to move beyond our differences and see a collaborative and reconciliational approach to this virus. For those businesses that are impacted, for lives that are impacted, we ask for a special touch of grace. Lord, this is our prayer. We ask it and claim it in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Councilman McDowell. We're in a period now. Obviously, we've all had a chance to speak to each other almost every single day, individually and collectively, over these last several days, and I expect we will as we continue to manage through this crisis. I remain hopeful. I know many of you do, that we're going to continue to do every single thing we can to make sure that our families, our businesses, that our local economy is strong. We're going to keep moving forward in a solutions-oriented way to make sure we do the jobs that we've been entrusted, but to do on behalf of the great citizens of this incredible city. May we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Mr. President, there's one item that maybe you wanted to add regarding some letters to, I think, the General Assembly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so motion to adopt the agenda. We do have one letter we want to make sure we send. I think circulated amongst all of us. Letter to the governor, president of the Senate, and the Speaker of the House. Want to add that for discussion as well. All right. All right. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda with as amended?
I'll move.
Second.
Discussion. Seeing none, we'll move the previous question. Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Brennan,
Yes.
Mr. Rickerman,
Aye.
Mr. McDowell,
Yes.
Mr. Duval,
He's on. You're muted, Howard.
Mr. Duval, thank you. Mr. Vine,
Aye.
Mr. Davis,
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin.
Aye. All right. A resilient Columbia economic sustainability plan. Teresa, the staff want to walk us through the overall plan. But we know that the way we're all dealing just across the country with COVID-19 and its effect on our small businesses, on nonprofits, and certainly want to make sure that our responsibility to make sure we meet the public safety, health needs of our community, that we're meeting them. Do you have someone who wants to walk us through it, or how are we going to do it?
Yes, sir, we do, and you've established the purpose. At this point, our Budget and Program Management Director, Missy Kaufman, as well as Assistant City Manager, Missy Gentry, DFO Jeff Palin, and Assistant City Manager, as well as myself, will walk you through several slides. Mayor Benjamin and Council, we've attempted to capture what we believe the purpose is as outlined to us, but we're certainly looking for today your guidance on the programmatic thrust and some things that you may want to change or give direction to today. But we've tried to at least create the foundation for you and a baseline regarding what we know to be the possible and known impacts of COVID-19 on small businesses and nonprofits across the city, as well as impacts to us internally, to the city's budget and ability to provide a seamless delivery of public services in response to this emergency. So with that, I would ask for Missy to get started taking us through the slides and the various components of the entire plan. Within the plan, there's a specific focus and program on sustainability and stability of businesses, small businesses, and nonprofits. So with that, we'll get started.
And Teresa, I'll say one thing before. I'm sorry, Daniel, you're saying something?
Could somebody just clarify the meaning of nonprofit for this discussion?
Yes, sir. From a staff perspective, we were meaning nonprofit service providers. I think that will come up of the presentation. We again are looking for clarification from you all for guiding us regarding that. But we know that there are some service providers in our community who are doing an exceptional job with seniors or homeless services or what might have you. They are known to do that work. And while we as a city can complement what they do, if it may be funding or what have you, we do think that council has to give some guidance to us on what we viewed as service providers versus maybe other nonprofits.
Yeah, I think we're talking about those crucial service providers that provide that essential community infrastructure that becomes always important, but becomes incredibly important in times like these, Daniel. And I think it's also important to note that this crisis is changing by the hour, and obviously globally, nationally, across our state, and here locally. So it's important that this is a plan that is a living document that we expect we're going to be meeting regularly and continuing to modify and expand or contract. And some ideas will work. We're going to continue to innovate. Some ideas will work. Some may we might not see the same takedown the takedown we want to see. So we may have to modify it. But we're going to continue to talk, continue to dialogue, continue to learn from other places, and continue to amend and expand our plan. So we're going to learn as we go. But that was a great and important question. Let's get started.
Mr. Mayor,
please.
Before we get started, I know that, like you said, this is a living, breathing document, so this is not set in stone yet, but I know we weren't able to put it on the website yet. Well, after this meeting, will this PowerPoint be on the website if people wanted to actually review it?
Yes, ma'am. We can actually post it right now. Ms. Moore is texting me asking if you all want it up. The only reason we didn't was because we knew that you may make some soft changes as we talk. But if you prefer for it to be posted now for people who would rather be looking at it a hard copy, that's fine.
Absolutely. That's
Just
Daniel.
want to make sure that everybody knows that it is a working document.
Mhm.
Fortunately, so much
Post-
all over the place. Accurate. I just want to make sure that this is a working document. There could be change.
Yeah, but yeah. Yeah, I agree. But yeah, so post it as a draft. So we want the public to be able to follow along with us. Go ahead and post it, and obviously, just even based on our conversations, some things may change before this meeting's over, and some obviously will change over the course of time. But yeah, please go ahead and put it up immediately.
Yes.
Okay, Ms. Wilson, I'm sorry. For clarity, is Erica going to post it only on the meeting link, or would you want it on the website as well?
As many places as possible.
Okay.
All right. Thank you,
Okay.
Missy and Missy.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So as Ms. Wilson has stated, our purpose here today is to present a resilient Columbia and economic sustainability plan. We want to address the possible and known impacts of COVID-19 on small businesses and nonprofits across the city, as well as impacts on our city budget and our ability to provide seamless delivery of public services and response to emergencies. One of the first areas that we want to address is where we have impacts on city revenues. And on our general fund, primary area that we anticipate or expect there to be impacts will be a decline on business license revenues. We are thinking both in the current fiscal year as well as, in particular, next fiscal year that we will start on July 1st. So we are anticipating some hit on the general fund, our general fund budget in terms of general fund revenues. And as we all know, our general fund is where we fund our primary operations of the city. General fund supports water, police department, fire department, our courts, our parks recreation, our central administration, all of our public works, all of our basic delivery service departments. In addition, one of the main areas that we expect there to be some impacts will be our hospitality tax, our tourism development fees, and our accommodation tax. All three of those funding sources, of course, are dedicated to specific purposes and revenues, but those things that are funded through those activities are very critical to the city and as well as our community. The hospitality industry is going to be significantly impacted, as we all know, so we anticipate collections from those revenues to be expected to decline. And in particular, we have specific areas of concern that have been raised both by City Council as well as city staff and the community through our city council. And those being our overarching concerns exist in a community regarding gaps in assistance for small businesses and nonprofit service providers. We know there's a lot of activity coming around in regards to federal and state agency. We anticipate there to be some gaps in some of those activities, as well as restrictions to certain resources. So this program, and we're looking forward, will help to provide gap as well as some immediate relief. And our nonprofit service providers, as discussed previously, also we anticipate or expect or heard that specific impacts that they will endure, and they are often on the front line with regards to providing direct services to some of the populations that are most directly hit and impacted from this COVID-19 We also, as mentioned, hospitality tax collections, our hospitality organizations that rely on those allocations to support their activities and their events. We still have 3 months left in this fiscal year, so those entities that have either had events that are canceled are now not able to carry on the events that would have produced operational income for them, as well as expenses that may already have incurred in preparation for events that would have taken place between now and June. We have contacted those groups and have expressed options for them to either carry forward or to get reimbursed for expenses that have incurred to date. In particular, these unprecedented events have placed an additional burden on our limited public safety resources. We already know that the police department is not operating on full strength and is tasked with enforcing a curfew and other safety measures that are stretched on an already impacted department. And as we are experiencing today, and as well as we have adapted in order to be able to deliver our services, continue to deliver our services to our customers and with as seamlessly as possible and without disruption, being able to telecommute, being able to provide services remotely, as well as allowing our customers and the public to be able to interact with us on a self-serve basis through online services is critical now in order to be able to operate in this manner, either on the short term, hopefully a short term or a possible long-term situation. So being able to have the technology that we need to be able to provide these services is very critical. So with what we've proposed, we are looking at recommending our funding source would be a transfer from our water and sewer, our non-operating revenues of our water and sewer system to the general fund in the amount of $6 million. We will go into more detail into how those funds will be allocated or recommended for allocation, and making sure that what we are describing here is those non-operating revenues. If Jeff wants to comment any on terms of what those sources would be as opposed to our general.
Sure. So non-operating revenues, typically the water and sewer system has its operating revenues. That's the revenues that come in for the water and the sewer system. In addition to that, we do budget each year for interest earnings and other rental income. This year, we had budgeted $3.9 million for investment interest earnings. Through January, we're actually almost at budget already. We anticipate about $6 million in interest earnings this year. So that would be the source of our initial funds for the recommendations that we're making today.
Okay. The recommendations that we have today, first is establishing a small business and nonprofit stabilization package in the amount of $2 million. We'll go in more detail after these slides. Missy Gentry will talk a little bit more about those programs in detail. One of the other areas, as we've mentioned, is the hospitality tax impacts on those revenues. Currently, the hospitality tax includes a transfer to the general fund in the amount of $3.7 million. What we are proposing is suspension of the last 3 months of that transfer to the general fund that would account for $925,000 that could retain in the hospitality tax fund. This would help to ensure continuation of existing allocations as well as build a reserve for future losses so that as we enter into the next fiscal year, we can build some reserves for where there might be some additional needs. Of course, subject to hospitality tax. Yes, sir.
The last 3 months, are you talking about this past quarter or the next quarter?
The 3 months coming up, April, May, and June of this year.
Based on where we're headed now, I mean, there's not going to be any money to not transfer. I mean, we're going to be short anyway. So I think we need to do that.
Yes, sir. So this is in part what this is doing, since we now want the general fund would, without having those revenues coming into the hospitality tax, it would not be there to transfer to the general fund. So the general fund would be taking that hit. So in this case, assuming a slowdown of the hospitality tax, not knowing what the actual impact would be, this would help to show up what we have collected to date.
Okay.
So we're not assuming that there'll be $925,000 available. It's to help mitigate what we don't know yet won't be coming in.
And you've accounted for any surplus in that, or no?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
The 925 just reflects what the balance, the 3 months of transfer would be. Next is to provide funding for CPD to completion of the Columbia Police Department's recruitment and retention plan. This would help the position of the department to be competitive as we strengthen the city's ability to respond in emergencies. This is $2 million. Provide funding for additional public safety initiatives needed to strengthen the city's ability to respond in emergencies. This currently includes our fire, our 911 communication center, as well as emergency management. And as mentioned, enhancements for our information technology for online service delivery to the public. We're looking at those costs right now of $1 million. Additional recommendations include waiving of penalties for hospitality tax and tourism development fees collected through June of 2020. Of course, we need to continue to monitor our customers' needs and follow our delivery and our approach to.
I have a question on that real quick. Does the state have to agree to that setup as well?
No, sir. These would be waived. These are enacted by city ordinances. We would not. The waive of fees, penalties for late fees is an action that the city can take.
Thank you.
We've also waived fees for online credit card payments so that our customers can make transactions with us for the services that they pay through online, waiving those fees as well.
Missy, let me ask a question about that. So I know when we first went to online credit card payments, there was a lot of we were going through the state, so the fee was actually a pass through for what we were being charged. I think we've changed that, but is that accurate? I mean, we don't have a fee at all for people to, there won't be a fee to us for people paying online, or is that a fee that we're going to have to recoup somewhere?
That means that the city will be absorbing those fees. We are charged a fee, and the fee is passed on currently to customers, so now we will be waiving that. We will waive the fee, which means the city will be absorbing that fee.
Okay. Can you just get us what that is, average, so that we're just aware of what that is?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, certainly.
2.5% or a minimum of $195 for credit cards, and it's $4 for each telephone transaction that you have. And we need to waive the telephone transaction too.
That one was a little
able to waive the telephone transaction. We looked into it, Mr. Duvall, without changing the contractual terms with the company. We were hoping that for people that are, it's a more minimal amount of customers who decide to do it over the phone. So they're sort of used to do that $4 fee. But for people in this situation who may be resorting to the phone now, we were going to encourage them to do it online.
Well, later on, I want to have some discussions about convenience fees, because this is not the time to do it, but it's on my radar screen.
Okay. We did reduce into getting rid of the $4 right now too, but Jeff or Missy, if you want to add to what I've said, I think that it would be a contractual change that I don't know that we can right now.
It is, and we also want to make sure that folks know that there are still a variety of ways that you can pay without any fees, either to the city or to us. The banks still make our payments. We also still have, mail-in payments are still available, as well as you can draft on your checks in Dropbox. So there are other options that don't have a cost incurred at all. Okay, we'll keep going. We want to make sure that everyone's aware of the actions that we've already taken, that that are already in place. So we have a deadline for business license payments has been extended to May 15th. We're bagging parking meters in their restaurants for those folks who are going to pick up to-go orders for quick access without the parking fees. And we also have established an economic development website for small businesses, as well as a small business survey to help identify needs that small businesses are currently incurring. And then the small business support website is also available there. There will be also, Missy Gentry will go into more detail of that in some following slides. Last, we want to make sure that the public is aware of items and things that we are doing with regards to persons and families that are experiencing homelessness. We've been working very closely with United Way, who is coordinating the homeless service providers in the Midlands area, both with adults and with families. They're organized in two different groups, addressing both their in particular needs for those populations. Richland County is helping to compile. There's a list that's being published and produced daily that provides resources for folks experiencing homelessness, sheltering information, medical services, a variety of different needs that are available right away. DHEC is providing for the sheltering of those folks that are experiencing homelessness that need to be quarantined or isolated. They are taking care of their particular needs. And of course, we want to continue the public to.
Missy.
Yes, sir.
On the one about DHEC, DHEC has set out some requirements according to the board at transitions, but they're not providing any shelter. And they just say you have to do this and that. Are they actually providing some places for the isolation or quarantine?
For folks that are actually diagnosed or that are required to be quarantined. Yes, that's what we have been told.
I'm not clear. They're providing space
Yes.
at their facility.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last piece.
I think as of today, the latest information we received is that they are, I don't know, I guess contracting in a sense with alternate locations, and I don't know that we get into the actual locations.
Right.
Yes, Missy.
Yes, sir.
Missy, those locations that perhaps we have identified, or I understand we haven't identified, we've got a number of homeless folk who are going to be hit with this virus, I think, in astronomical terms. The triage mechanism, has DHEC thought about triaging homeless folk to kind of see where they are, so appropriate shelter is taken care of?
So from the information we are aware of, DHEC is addressing those needs as folks are diagnosed or as they are needed for quarantine. Is your question specifically about as someone is diagnosed?
Yes.
Okay, yes. DHEC will be taking care of those persons specifically.
Well, I would.
And they're taking care of their sheltering. For folks that are not requiring hospitalization, of course.
Okay, all right.
Missy, I guess, and just to back up to the first one about, I guess, more specifically for families, I'm just wondering right now, because of the urgency of what's happening, I would, and I know we've already in the past been challenged when it comes to families. Is it not to streamline, I guess, the services, the provision services? Is there not a better way instead of, I mean, of course, coordinated with the United Way, but maybe directly working with Homeless No More or the family shelter to make sure that the families don't have any lag time in getting services?
So Homeless No More is leading up the coordination on the homeless families
Okay.
team directly. And so
Okay.
they are working through those components. They are definitely involved with the resources for homeless families.
Okay. And do we know, like, if there's a family that is experiencing, I know there's been a halt on evictions and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully there's some time to get this information out. But if there is a family that is experiencing extreme hardship, do they still go through like 311 and the United Way? Do we know that that information is out there, or how do they contact Homeless No More so that there is not I'm just worried about some bumps in the system or lag time.
Sure, some of the information that's provided there with regards to Richland County Library is putting together is a resource directly for those folks that are experiencing homelessness, both individuals and families, but then to United Way and Homeless No More, like you said, the 311. But we can find out more information about how families could be provided information. We are also aware of is that they are making available hotel vouchers as needed.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Missy, may I?
Yeah.
Where's transitions and perhaps our gospel mission? How are they factored in, or have they been factored in?
Yes, they have been factored in. They are also they are part of the coordination that's occurring with regards to homeless individuals. They are doing what they can do in terms of helping make sure that resources are available, both with cleaning and availability of hand washing, resources like that. There's a need for, of course, certain assistance that they are getting overwhelmed, I'm sure, with just having the availability of one of the last requests I've seen or help I've needed is for bottled water available. I'm sure they could use some hand sanitizers and things of that nature. Transition, I believe, is still taking on folks who may need a place to stay. But I have not heard about the other shelters specifically.
Well, the reason I asked that, and I want to sort of piggyback on the curfew, of course, takes place from 11 p.m. to 6 o'clock a.m. For those persons who are still, say, in the street without shelter, how has that coordination been with CPD?
I'm not as aware right now whether or not what police may be doing with regards to encountering of folks who are not sheltered at this time.
I think
Yeah,
the chief is on the call if he wants to speak to that, because we have been dealing with that. Chief, are you on the line?
Yes, for me. Oh, it's unmuted. Can you all hear me?
We can hear you, Chief.
Yes.
I'm sorry. So we've obviously been dealing with this case by case basis. We've got 3 days of warnings going on. We're not, encountering a problem that we haven't been able to get people to, to a shelter that we've found. We haven't gone looking either, though, I might add. We've seen terrific compliance in general from our citizens. We've seen what we believe is a reduction in just the number of homeless people we've seen out, although we don't really have a good explanation to give you for that, other than they're probably sheltering in some of the urban camping situations. We dealt with an urban camping complaint yesterday on the south side. We're making some contacts as we speak with our hotel managers and business managers that are open downtown and in the Vista, just to get some personal thoughts on some of their concerns. We've heard some things about some people in the parking decks and things like that. So we're being very vigilant when it comes to that. But you know, when all of our gospel transitions, they have not allowed, you know, additional people. So I don't have a perfect answer for you other than we're handling it the best we can, case by case.
Yeah. I want to ask to move this along. Sam, you have something you want to ask before we do?
Yeah, a quick comment and a question. From the preliminaries, I'm pleased right now to see that I think the interactions between our guys, CPD and the fire department, have been traditional interactions. You know, the facility counts for violators and in terms of capacity and that sort of thing. I'm pleased that it's not going where I had some concerns about. I know we're still new in the game, but I think I credit our training and the equipment that they have in order to do their job, do it right, and leave it with a positive feeling for everybody. The other thing is, you mentioned, you know, the urban camp areas. Are there any special precautions they're taking, or equipment, supplies, when if they have to go into those areas?
No, sir. Other than any precautions that, I mean, everybody has PPE kits, and equipment in their vehicles. If they believe they're entering any type of hazardous environment, then they're instructed on, you know, how to proceed or to hit pause and get the right people there with the right equipment to address the issue.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I'm going to ask to move along. I will say that just very quickly, anecdotally, I know everyone's concerns, particularly Mr. McDowell, the oxymoron of having a curfew and then having some of our citizens who are unsheltered. But anecdotally, I've gotten really, really good feedback from folks about the way in which the police department has been enforcing not only the curfew, but also helping enforce the governor's executive order with the right amount of patience and compassion and understanding as we all adjust to this new normal. So it's all been very good, and I'd encourage you to keep, if you hear concerns, share them with the city manager and Chief Holbrook. But let's keep on moving. We got to get through the rest of the meat of this program. All right, thank y'all.
So this is Misty Gentry. I will chime in and talk about the small business and nonprofit service organization opportunities that we would like to present.
Missy, real quick, as you're getting started, Missy Kaufman is going to also have a one-page document. It may bleed over to a second page of the program, the entire program. So Missy, if you could be preparing that to send to council as well, not the PowerPoint version, but the document version that will be shared with you.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Will do.
So we'll start with, I'm sorry, Mr. Watson.
No, thanks, Missy Gentry. Go ahead.
Okay, so we'll start with just some of the current legislation we're aware of. I believe everyone else is aware as well. The federal House Bill 6201 has passed. It targets businesses with 500 or fewer, actually that's 500 or fewer employees. It's a payroll credit for required paid sick leave and a credit for sick leave for self-employed individuals. There is also pending legislation for companies with 500 or greater employees. And we'll continue to track all of the legislation and make it available on our website. We've also participated through the Office of Business Opportunities in the SBA's webinar on economic injury disaster loan. So we're showing some of the information about that effort Are pleased to say that South Carolina was added to the disaster area, so we have information further in the presentation on how to link to the disaster loan fund. We also have released a small business survey. Office of Business Opportunities released that on Wednesday evening, and so far we have 684 responses, which is really good to know that people are looking at our website and responding. Obviously, that also shows the level of need that exists in our community. We have listed some of the websites where we're posting information to, including the overall city's website, as well as Economic Development's website and Office of Business Opportunities. And all of these are clickable, so for the public, they can click on the links and easily navigate to all of the information we're trying to make available.
Somebody's
We're also
using or crumbs and paper.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can someone mute themselves? But Missy, I do have a question on that, and it may be too late, or y'all may be able to do that. But I took the survey, and I know several folks have. I got a text from a small business owner asking whether or not we would have the results broken down and know which businesses are women-owned and minority businesses. And I don't believe there was a question that separated that out. Is there a way that once we finally compile all the results that we're able to figure out which businesses are minority and women owned?
We likely on the survey, a business can list the company name. If they choose to do that, we can certainly distinguish. If some businesses are not filling out that information, we will not be able to distinguish. So certainly if we release another survey in the future to get more detailed information, we can add that component to it.
Okay, we probably want to consider doing that if we release do a deeper dive as to which businesses are being affected. I think the assumption is probably that minority and women-owned businesses might be hit even harder, so we need to be able to distinguish that.
I'm not sure about that, Tamika. I think we're all together right now. I think everyone's hurting. So, but capturing data is always good. You can only imagine what you can measure. So, if we can capture that prospectively, it may prove helpful. But I think everybody's struggling right now.
Absolutely, and as the results are coming in, we will work next week to start consolidating all of the results and being able to report on what we're seeing back. So we'll know more then if we can distinguish the type of business or not. We're also pushing a lot of. Yes, sir.
Now, in that survey, I have not taken the survey because I'm not a business owner, but I'm very, very much concerned about those business owners who are, like all other businesses, are going to have to swallow the bitter pill. Will you show the demographics in terms of perhaps each district or each at large? It would be helpful for us to see, for me to see, those areas that are going to be impacted demographically.
We will certainly be able to reflect, if the business gave us their name, we can certainly look and see where they're at demographically, and we can reflect that information. It may be that some of the surveys come back without a business name on it, because we did leave that optional. So we'll have some that we may not be able to pin to a particular location, but we'll do the best we can. And certainly I know businesses all over the city are feeling the impact, and we want to help as many as we can and spread our resources as far as we can. So we're also pushing a lot of social media releases to highlight the businesses that are open and operational and make sure that people know where they can go to get their services met or their needs met, including restaurants. And, we have a lot of retail businesses closing, but we're going to highlight as much as we can and certainly encourage the social distancing, but also encourage support of our businesses. We have been bagging parking meters for a few days outside of restaurants that are open, just to make it really easy to pull up and do your takeout. I think if y'all navigated through town, you'll see it's really not hard to find a parking space right now, but we thought in the very beginning that was a good faith effort to make sure that there was parking readily available outside of all of the restaurants. We are encouraging consideration of rent relief for the small businesses. That's not something we can mandate, but we have talked with a lot of property owners or management companies to encourage rent relief. I'm going to keep going. I'm not sure if that was a question or not. I'm going to keep going. So we will continue to track that. I know that a lot of corporate companies have clauses in their leases that will provide for rent relief. So we're really in the beginning stages of looking into that and seeing what the possibilities are. But certainly I think we've seen across the country that property owners recognize that's a problem, and possibly providing some rent relief for a short period of time will help them retain their tenants long term. We're also fortunate that we have 37 businesses that have commercial loans with the City of Columbia. We have already taken action to do one of two options, and we're going to work this business by business based on their needs. We will either defer their loan payments for a 3-month period, and we will add those payments to the end of the loan term, or we can allow them to make interest-only payments for 6 months. And again, we're in the very beginning stages of that process, but we certainly recognize that any assistance we can provide will be appreciated and beneficial. So we're going to work with each business to identify which one of those two options work best for them. So we have 3 recommendations for you today. The first being the establishment of a Columbia Loan Loss Revenue Fund in the amount of $1 million. This would allow us to leverage our $1 million with private banks and CDFIs to secure some additional funds that can be used for small business loans. Our funds would be used as a 10% backstop in the event that the loan recipients were not able to pay their full amount. So it's likely that as we navigate through this process, that our funds will not even be needed, but they certainly will be available to give some comfort to the private banking institutions that they will have some funds readily available to help make the loan payments if needed. This will be a collaboration between the city and the local private financial institutions. The conversations have started. We've got a lot of work to do, but we're very excited about the responses received to date and the opportunity to make this happen.
Keep on going, Missy.
Okay, recommendation number 2, we also would like to establish a small business forgivable loan program specific to this disaster. We would use $500,000 to establish this. It would be a 0-interest forgivable loan program for small businesses in the city limits with under 100 employees, no franchises or chains. Online applications will be accepted just to make that an easy process. This would be intended to provide gap funding, so it's not intended to replicate any existing programs or opportunities through federal or state agencies, but really just to provide that gap funding. And the business would need to have the ability to demonstrate the impact on their business through this disaster. Our recommended areas of assistance, and this is up for discussion, would be lease or mortgage assistance, utility assistance, vendor supplier payments, and then we can certainly bring in any other opportunities that are needed. And again, we would like the flexibility to work with each businesses to understand their needs and make sure that we're providing the gap needed to keep them whole. And then our third, well, actually, before I move on to our third recommendation, we have shown some examples of the types of businesses. This is not intended to be all-inclusive and certainly is open for discussion, but we wanted to just give you some ideas of who we're hearing from as far as the types of businesses that are most impacted.
Missy,
Yes, sir.
what's the parameter of time for the 0-interest forgivable loans?
Well, the first step would be to make sure that we're funding it. We would work through that fairly quickly. Our typical loan programs are 5-year forgivable. We would set some parameters that the business would need to be in existence for a certain length of time, and we have not worked out all of those details. We will certainly work to do that over the next week if the funds are confirmed today.
Is there a maximum amount per business?
I mean, it's really hard because businesses' needs are different. We're thinking between 10 to 25,000, and again, we're working through those details. We will have a specific amount that would be a not to exceed amount, but we haven't nailed down that limit right now.
And again, that is a gap funding mechanism, right? Okay.
Absolutely. It's not intended to be the first choice. We really want to help these businesses navigate other opportunities, both federal and state, and then we come in and provide any gaps that are needed. We want to stretch our funds as far as we can to help as many people as we can. So we can go back to the types of businesses if the funds are provided to us. I'm going to move on to our third recommendation, which is the establishment of a grant program for nonprofit service providers. And again, that is intended to be the providers that are helping the community, the most vulnerable portion of our community with needs specific to this event, food needs, shelter needs.
Rent, income, utilities, some of the longer term things that are needed. Some of our folks that are both that have either lost their jobs or losing wages, and then really in existence too for those organizations, those those nonprofit service providers that are providing services now will see potentially a drop in revenues, but also and potentially an increase in the number of clients that they're being asked to serve. That would also include some of our senior population with regards to meal shares. The food banks are also looking to provide.
Quick question for the Missies. So this essentially is the gap funding for workforce to help meet their needs immediately.
Well, it's
Nonprofit.
This is nonprofits. So I'm going to name a few organizations. It's not intended to say these are who we will fund, but organizations such as Homeless No More, Meals on Wheels, Senior Resources, St. Lawrence Place, Salvation Army, those type of nonprofits that are providing a need, and again, they're seeing their demand increase.
Miss, it's difficult to hear someone is rattling paper.
It's not anyone sitting in this office. So.
We know who it is.
It's the mayor. It's the mayor.
Somebody take away the cookie jar from the mayor.
My beautiful, my children and wife sent lunch with me. I apologize. Go back to work. All right.
Well, you didn't send us any.
True.
I gave at the office, preacher.
So with this recommendation, we're requesting $500,000 for the nonprofit service providers.
Okay,
We also have listed, yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, but just to be clear, that this funding could go to the nonprofits operational, like their rent or their mortgage, as well as the actual direct services that they provide to their clients?
Let me say something. We haven't established I think the criteria. We need to put some parameters around it. But the goal here is to stabilize small businesses and nonprofits that provide critical community infrastructure. I mean, right now we have to find ways. We're part of an interconnected and interdependent world right now. We're part of a global economy, a microcosm of society. Right, and this is so. Obviously, we've talked about this a lot. Usually when there's a flood in Colombia, or a hurricane in Florida, or a tornado in Dayton, Ohio, or we're cobbling together supplies for a Hurricane Harvey, and send a truckload of stuff down the road. Our first responders, our National Guard, are deployed to other communities, and that's what we do normally. This is the very first time a national disaster has hit every single community at the same time. Everyone, same time. Very first time in probably in American history. So we are required now try and have an inward-facing economy. We're looking at our ecosystem. We've had robust and strong conversations with the county. I want to thank the county for their leadership and creativity. Some of the ideas we're talking about are the same ideas they have, and hope we can marry these ideas together to have significant leverage and impact on our community. But this is meant to make sure that the needs of the people, working people, businesses that provide commerce and help keep our community going until we see the end of the tunnel, and the nonprofits that also play a key role there. Hopefully, we can try and make sure that $1 of public funds that we spend is recycled through the community as many times as possible. So if we decide not, and I would suggest that we do decide to support senior resources in their request to try and feed thousands of seniors for the next 8 weeks, making sure they have good meals. We want senior resources and go and spend that money with local restaurants and caterers. But as many local restaurants are still open and trying to keep themselves open and take care of their employees, we want them to be able then to take some of that money that they earn and be able to pay the rent to the commercial realtors that eventually will have to continue to pay property taxes. We can all do that in the interest of still meeting some of our economic and food insecurity needs. But that very same dollar is circulating throughout an inward-facing community. That's our goal here. So while we want to make sure there's latitude, we do want to make sure that these resources meet the need that they're meant to serve right now. So we want to make sure folks have latitude, but we're going to have to put some parameters around it to make sure that the limited public funds are being stewarded very, very carefully as we go forward.
So again, if this recommendation is approved, we will certainly work through the guidelines and put the criteria on paper as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Mayor, everybody, let me say something. My intentions were to kind of make a point before the mayor stepped up a few seconds ago, but this is it is a challenge. But some of the things I'm seeing come out of here is that it kind of takes you back to some of the thinkings that staff have been sort of looking at over a period of time. It's all centered around how do we help small businesses, not necessarily in a crisis, although this is one. But I think that the data and the information as a result of what we're looking to do now, it's a step-by-step approach. It's taking a look at everything that's possible within our means. Also, I think there's there's going to be a push and a need to be more collaborative with other entities, private or nonprofit. And I think this is coming about in its form and the elements of it as a result of, I think, one, the training that we allow staff to participate in, the local relationships that we have, and also, I think, having and still seeing a need to really find out what is it the small businesses and nonprofits need. What can we do? It's, probably we'll end up asking that question more on the front end. What is kind of like the cold calls you make to businesses, walk in the door and ask the question, how can I help you? And I think this is going to bring, and it is bringing out the best in us as a city and as a group of employees that are stepping up to the plate. I think we have to say that, and that's not a brag, but it's just part of doing business. And who knows what's going to happen the next time and when. So we've got to be prepared. I've been thinking about this. I stopped yesterday at Chili's coming from 20. And the thought in our mind, Andrina and Bico and myself was, how can we really get something to eat? We were out off of 20 in Lexington coming through. I was surprised there were only three cars in the yard, but we'd stopped into their park and take section. While we were there, they served about 20 people waiting on our lunches. So some folks are getting the knack, they're doing, and that's working. But again, it depends on the businesses and the resources they have or had before this happened. So I think we're going to have a lot to learn from everybody somewhere down the road when we get through this. I don't think you can go through any day not thinking about the next step. If this happens again, what will be the lessons we learned from this?
Mr. Mayor.
I got a comment.
Yes, sir.
Whatever turn is.
Y'all go ahead. I'm on mute so I can eat my snack here without Chris Trainer breathing over my shoulder. Let's
yes,
Mr. Rickman and Mr. McDowell.
I just I want to thank the staff for working together. I think one of the things that we have to if I disappeared or not. I think one of the things that we have to really understand is that we're trying to do something to kind of help in the short term, but the reality of this is a longer term issue. And having kind of really thought through the process, you know, a lot of the businesses have been down since the school was out for spring break and then the extension. And now the universities and close to 40,000 students aren't in school. Our economy is hit probably 25 to 30% and could possibly stretch to August. So I think trying to leverage every aspect, as the mayor described earlier, of recycling dollars, but also making in our relationships with our surrounding neighbors and businesses to try to sustain ourselves is going to be key. And the sooner we can get back to some type of normal function, and I hope in the next weeks we can go to the next week we can get back to social distancing and getting the restaurants open, because you know those businesses I think have been not really fairly been targeted. As if any y'all been to a grocery store or anywhere else around here, hundreds of people grabbing everything. I think we need to ensure that our elderly are sick and susceptible to viruses, whose respiratory issues, really self-quarantine, but also using these opportunities to make sure that we're getting supplies to them and meals to them and keeping our other businesses in. So, I mean, this really is a neighbor helping a neighbor policy. And, you know, I hope that we don't continue to be under the guidelines we are now, because I don't know what we would do at the next level. I mean, we're a week into it, but it's really been 2 weeks if you think about it. And so, you know, there's not a lot of businesses that can sustain that type of downturn. And we got a lot of people nationwide. The restaurant is 7 million people are out of work right now. You know, it's about 80 to 90 billion dollars a year out of the economy. South Carolina, just Columbia itself annually is $500-600 million in this industry. It's our largest employer. So, you know, and that trickle down, that then affects the suppliers, then that affects the truck drivers, then that affects the salons and all the other places. So, you know, what we're doing is a step, but until we can get to some type of normalcy, it's going to be a real struggle. So I think we need to do everything we can to urge those folks who need to take extra precaution, who need to be able to, you know, simple things, wash your hands, be smart what you do, but still allow us to try to get back to some type of normalcy is along with this is the only way.
Ms. McDowell? Yes, sir.
Yeah. I want to say unequivocally and unalterably, I think the document itself lends itself to a real support for our small businesses and, of course, for businesses. But there is a human toll that we don't want to forget. That 84-year-old person in our community who's struggling right now because he or she doesn't have the necessary environmental tools to care for themselves. It poses a real issue and concern for me. I think it's very valuable that we take care of our businesses. It's very valuable that we put a document together that's going to speak directly and profoundly to our small businesses. But what about that 84-year-old? What about that senior person? And of course, I think the document lends itself to that because it establishes a grant program. I want to make sure and ensure that we don't forget the human toll, the human things that's going to take place as we venture and sojourn through this crisis. Thank you.
Amen. And that's so important. Both of your comments and actually all three are taken to heart. I will say, Ms. McDowell had a great conversation with Gloria Saeed, and city manager and others earlier too. I think Ms. Devine said a great article from Washington, D.C. and the ways in which neighborhood associations and again, that existing community infrastructure that probably we all take for granted throughout the year. We've been blessed with a great council of neighborhoods. You have a lot of people who are committed to doing community work every single day. Well, these are those times when we need to make sure that we're checking on our neighbors, need to make sure that people have some type of social contact and protect our mental and emotional health during this period of social distancing, when we're making sure that our neighbors are eating and had a great conversation with Ms. Saeed, who is, of course, our Director of Community Development, talking about different and creative ways that we might be able to engage that community infrastructure.
That's
so I'd
correct.
say the
That's
seven
correct.
of us, as we engage, and I know all of us, I've talked to each of you every day for the last several days, we're constantly engaging with the community. Let's continue doing that. And as we do that, we'll get more and better ideas that will allow us to fully engage with the community and to meet those human needs that you discussed. Couldn't agree more. All right, Missy.
So I will keep going. Our next series of slides really are just highlighting some of the programs out there that are available to help small business, to help our community, and starting with the City of Columbia website, the Small Business Survey is linked, our Office of Business Opportunity website, as well as Economic Development website and the city's overall website. Also information to the Small Business Association, including their disaster loan assistance, which we just added to this today because it became available to South Carolina. South Carolina EMD does have a good website up as well to help business operations, so we wanted to point that out to our community, as well as the link to the unemployment office. I will, the last bullet on here we need to update. As we said, Mayor, this is a fluid document because things are changing hourly, it seems, or at least by the day. So the filing date now has been extended to July 15th, I believe, but there is a link to the IRS information as well. And then our next page is highlighting the private and nonprofit support links in our community and outside of our community. Some of these are nationwide and some of these are specific to Columbia. So we just wanted to point these out to our businesses and nonprofits to make sure that they're looking into all of these opportunities and applying for as many funds as possible for the programs they're trying to provide.
Very good.
And just to summarize
Missy, I'm sorry. That resources, are we going to have those links on our website, and then are we going to be constantly updating them for as we hear about other resources?
Yes, ma'am, we will.
Missy, I was texting with Missy Kaufman while we were working through the one-page document that will sort of become just the overarching program plan information with a link on that document to this small business and nonprofit stabilization package. Where will this land? Will it be, I'm sure it could be multiple places on our website, but on our homepage, hopefully as well. But if it had to land in a particular place, is it going to be OBON linked through Ryan's website?
Yes, ma'am, that would be our intention, is putting it on the city's overall website. That's probably the easiest place for the community to find it, so we will work with public relations on that, as well as put it on those individual websites. And we can also push it out through our social media platforms.
But it'll continue to be fluid and updated, as Ms. Devine is stating, as far as the resources and any new information.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. So our next slide will be just the summary of the recommendations specific to small business and nonprofit stabilization package, to include the $1 million for lost loan revenue fund, $500,000 for small business forgivable loan program, and $500,000 for nonprofit service industry forgivable loans. And actually, we've changed that to a grant program. We would ask that staff be allowed to work with our partner agencies to leverage funds as much as possible. Also have some flexibility as we're working with the individual entities that we're going to service, because their needs may be different from businesses. And we continue to also grant opportunities that the city can apply for, or our nonprofits or businesses can apply for, and we will do our best to help navigate those entities through those grant processes. And with that,
Missy, I'd say explicitly, certainly not just working with our partner agencies, but also with the business community. And every effort, I know we've all had extensive conversations with different leaders at the county, as much as we can do to parry up our initiatives with them to get maximum impact. Let's make sure that we do that. They've been pretty creative over there, so let's see how much we can do to work together.
Mayor, can I just follow up on one note that you had, Mayor? I'm getting a lot of phone calls exactly for the community volunteering outlets, the engagement. And so if there's a central, area that the city can promote to gather names and numbers of interested individuals and how to get them engaged, I think that'd be wonderful.
All right. Fantastic. People want to help.
and moving on to our last slide, I will hand it back over to Mr. Kaufman.
Can I throw something in? And I meant to mention it earlier. One of the things that we've done a great job about trying to do a lot of business in town with different businesses. We need to go through our payables and see what we can get rushed through, because sometimes that takes longer because of our system, but that'd be a great thing for us to do, is to get whatever we bought or owe to the local folks, get it out quicker.
Great idea. Right now, guys, as much as we can do to help people with cash flow, the better. Go ahead, Missy C.
Okay, so just to wrap up our summary of recommendations, as we've discussed, the recommendation is a transfer from water and sewer non-operating revenue to the general fund in the amount of $6 million that would fund a package of items for our small business and nonprofit stabilization, in the amount of $2 million. We would forego the last 3/4 of the transfer from the hospitality tax to the general fund in the amount of $925,000. We provide funding for our police department recruitment and retention plan in the amount of $2 million, and then an additional $1 million for public safety initiatives to strengthen our emergency response, fire, 911, emergency management, and including some of our information technology enhancements for online service delivery. Then we would also ask for waiving of penalties for hospitality tax and tourism development fee collections through June 2020, and then waiving fees for online credit card payments.
And Will Brennan had an idea too. Will, are you online?
Yeah, I'm here.
You want to mention the cost structure you mentioned earlier today? For the
On what?
on stormwater?
Oh yeah, Missy, wonderful idea on how to encourage, I guess landlords to pass on savings that we can pass on to them. If staff could look at possible stormwater fees, rolling those back to a certain level for a short amount of time, I think that'd be a wonderful way to encourage landlords to pass that on to their tenants. So if we could look at that, to what level, I don't know, but just wanted to throw that out there, that is a way to encourage landlords to help their tenants stay in business.
Make sure that we have enough to cover the bonds that we've already issued to pay for those bonds.
Well,
Amen, amen, and amen. Mr. Davis?
no, I'm just reacting to Howard's statement, but so we don't have any real data on that yet, right? If we can follow that as we go, but I think any benefits we can get from water and sewer in this is a good one. And it's definitely justifiable.
Ultimate goal, let's do what we can to make sure that
Right.
we can keep our local commerce and economy, the businesses that employ our citizens healthy, up and running, and at the very same time, we've got to continue doing what we're doing to meet our obligations. So we could, those are not mutually exclusive. All right.
Right. That's my excuse me, Mr. Mayor. That was my point, Howard. I want
Yes, sir.
to show that there's a number there that you're putting your thumb on. We could do both, but at the same time, don't fall short of our responsibility. You follow me?
For the bond issue, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No.
All right. Let's keep. Missy, you wrapped yet?
We are wrapped on our end, sir.
All right. So the two other items. Teresa, do you have something else? Want to bring up two more things? Two other items. One is, of course, as referenced earlier, the very specific request of the governor, of the president of the Senate, and the Speaker of the House, urging them. I think I feel good that they're on this path already, but certainly we are in some incredibly uncertain times. We want to make sure we urge them to preserve the $1.8 billion surplus right now, so that we can meet the needs of the state, not just for the next fiscal year, but certainly for even meeting some of the needs of our citizens in an extraordinary manner this fiscal year. So we want to make sure that we're all fine with signing on to that letter. We're suggesting all 7 of us sign on to that. There are some other issues regarding obviously expediting unemployment and some other things that we want to make sure we add in future communications. So we want to go ahead and get this one out formally. We discussed it the other day. And the second one is formally approving the senior resources request. That would be $250,000. We have a great assurance that the county is going to match that request. They're also going to seek, of course, private funding as well, with a strong urging from us that they, to every extent possible, engage with our local businesses as well in procuring the food to meet the needs of our food insecure seniors. So either collectively or individually, I'd like to put those two things up just for formal action by council, and maybe consistent with the economic sustainability plan. Yes, Mr. Duval.
the 250,000 for senior resources, is that coming out of the 500,000 that we just talked about?
Honestly, Howard, I'd rather it be independent of that. If I'd rather it be independent of that. And certainly that's for, I got that same question from staff before we started the meeting. I'd rather be independent of that. It's a very specific need, pressing need right now, and I wouldn't want to diminish half of the commitment
Where would you
at
get
the
that
outset.
money? Where was that bucket?
We
got
can,
it hidden away?
same. No, sir.
Are you going to add it to the $6 million?
Make it 6250. Yes, sir. That would
Okay.
be my That would be my recommendation.
Steve, I want to make sure.
Let's say Mr. McDowell and then Mr. Rickenman.
Yeah, I just want to be clear because we previously talked about in the document the $500,000 for the nonprofit. If I understand you correct, the $250,000 is in addition to a part of the $500,000. Is that correct?
That would be my recommendation, Mr. McDowell, to have it in addition to that 500 with the request that I don't understand all the practicalities of how they package food and prepackaged food. I know they plan to have a system. They've worked out the logistics of how they'll drop these foods off. We want them to use that with local small businesses, the ones that are still doing takeout, as much as is practicable and possible. But I'd rather. I mean, I'll take either way. I'd rather have more resources at our disposal than less. I suspect we'll be meeting again probably as soon as next week, as this crisis changes by the hour. But I'd rather have more than less. I defer to the will of council, but I still put this plan up for approval today.
Mr. Mayor, are you ready for a motion?
I am, Mr. Duval. I'm sorry, Daniel, did you have something else? I'm sorry, I thought I heard you back there.
Yeah, I just was curious. I thought they were asking us to fund a portion of it. They are funding. They need us to fund $250,000 for 8 weeks. Is that right?
Yes, sir. For 1,000. I think it's 1,000. I think it's 1,000.
$100,000 program.
It's a $500,000 program total.
So what portion, Mr. Mayor, is the 500,000? I'm sorry.
So that would be uncommitted. If we pull that out right now, Ed, that 500,000 would still be uncommitted just yet and available for organizations to apply for. So the 250 would be in addition to that. And just as of course I've learned to listen to everyone. We got to make sure that we have sufficient accountability measures, including everything that we do. So while we're moving fast and moving in a meaningful and a thoughtful and heartfelt way, we've got to make sure that all of our partners, both public sector, private, and nonprofit, comply with some very clear requirements that ensure that the dollars that are spent are handled in a responsible manner, and we'll make sure of that. The staff will share those parameters with us.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, thank you for saying that. I just wanted us, part of the motion that you all were giving us the ability to establish these guidelines and accountability measures to the programs and how they'd be administered and how the application process would go.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Duval, do what you do.
Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry, Mr. McDowell, then Ms. Devine.
No, I'm ready to second Howard's motion.
Okay, Ms.
Let
Devine.
me see if I can get this the way the staff wants it. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Resilient Columbia Economic Sustainability Package as outlined in the summary of recommendations in the PowerPoint presented to council, that we increase the transfer to $6,250,000 and add to the recommendations that $250,000 be earmarked for senior resources, and that we ask the staff to come back to the council with guidelines and recommendations on how to implement the recommendations contained in the PowerPoint.
Second.
In discussion, Ms. Devine, let's also, and also add to that motion, the submission of the letter to the governor, the Senate President, and the Speaker of the House. Ms. Devine?
So now with that long motion, 2 points. One, I would just say that I think that the intent behind making sure that our money continues to turn over in the community is good. And I think that needs to be part of what, I guess, guidelines that staff comes back, but also understanding with some flexibility. I have volunteered at Meals on Wheels and with senior resources. And I think that the reason they are able to do so much with so little is I think a lot of times they cook their own food. So I just, I don't want us to hamstring ourselves and not be able to provide what we're really trying to do. So making sure that they're able to support local businesses where they can, but certainly not outside of not spending more money than necessary.
Yeah, sure. Well, with this specific request came with the provision that they would be engaging local caterers. I think the necessity of scaling up and logistics made that real. So that was the intent there. So obviously we want to make sure we stay within the budget so they can meet the needs of our citizens as much as possible. But certainly let's turn those dollars over as much as possible. Duly noted.
And then my second point, since this includes the recommendations on the sustainability plan, just as I mentioned earlier, I think as we monitor the situation, we need to make sure that we are also monitoring our middle income folks that will certainly be addressed. There are some people who are not business owners, but will be drastically impacted on way things are going. And to say, you know, people won't get evicted or mortgage payments might be halted for a couple months, that's fine. But if they don't have any income coming in, then after 2 or 3 months, they just have a bigger bill. So we need to make sure that we're monitoring and where we can address some of the other needs of folks that might not fall within that lower economic impact, but they are going to be impacted. I think we need to do that.
Mr. Mayor, just going back to one of the points I attempted to make, this is also an example of that group there. There's an assumption that if you're middle class, if you want to use that term, you're going to be okay. You're not going to be okay. And I'd like to see us just be flexible enough to keep our eyes and ears open on that group. They don't own businesses, but they, when they're on and when they're working, they're contributing and they're still part of the communities. We need to keep that in mind. And not necessarily, I'm not saying we have to, again, make funds available out of the taxpayers' pot that we have, but we've got enough skilled folks that can help them to locate resources that may not be within our purview. You know, I think that's an example of, again, looking at the total community and taking advantage of the skills and resources of the people we work for and work with.
Yeah.
All right.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Rickman, then Mr. McDowell.
I think two things. I think, you know, if we have an opportunity to connect again on Monday and see how things evolved over the weekend and really give us a chance to get, you know, some of this worked out. The one thing I'm not clear about is exactly how it's going to work. And I think that's a big question for a lot of people is, can somebody kind of walk through how we're going to make this happen?
That's what we're asking the staff to do, is to fill out the steps on how it's implemented. I think if they knew that, they would have put it in the document.
Well, I mean, I think that's, I think it's important because you know, people once this is going out there right now are going to be very interested in reaching out to the sooner we can, the better off we're going to be, I hope. So I do think we ought to have another quick session on Monday, not only to get an update, but also to get, some direction on this.
All right.
Well, as
All
far as
right.
the loan programs go, I mean, we're going to have to work with local banks. I think that process has started. I don't promise you know that I'll have a huge update on that by Monday. And as far as the guidelines for like the forgivable loan program, we can immediately start working with resources. Their program is already, pretty much in place, other than the parameters that you all would like to see.
And I'd say this.
Bring the funds.
Sure, and I'd say this, Teresa. Every bank's different. Their DNA is different. Some are, every bank's risk averse. Some maybe less so than others. With the loan loss reserve program, let's not only hold it if there's bank participation. We got the folks. They got the wherewithal. Melissa and her team at OBO, they can execute on this as they do with all of our other loan programs, or however you deem most necessary. But if we wind up doing a small loan that's not leveraging a larger loan, that's okay too. So,
Right.
So if we just move forward with the $25,000 loan from our pool, and we don't have bank participation, don't let that slow us down. Okay, so let's continue to execute. But it is going to be important because Daniel is right. As soon as this council meeting's over, our inboxes are going to start filling up with questions from an eager constituency, and so the sooner we can get parameters, and I think, and some of these we won't have to reinvent the wheel. We actually have protocols in place, so it's just modifying them for the current moment.
We do, and I appreciate the confidence in our team. There's a lot going on right now. Every day we spend a lot of time preparing for these virtual meetings. With all due respect, if we could have one more day beyond Monday, as I just don't know what else we would talk about on Monday. That's in addition to what we've discussed today. I would love to spend that time nailing down the guidelines to roll out the programs.
Well, I think it goes without saying we'll be meeting again next week. So let's just plan to do that, and it won't be Monday. So you can still go to Bedside Baptist and do your virtual church. Mr. McDowell's gonna have someone knocking your door to get the collection. Okay, so we still be all right.
No,
but
I'm not coming by your house. Just mail it to me.
So while it won't be Monday, barring some other unforeseen happening between now and then, we should expect to meet. And again, Teresa, we got a motion on the floor, but Teresa, thank you to you and the whole staff. You guys have taken a bunch of incoming fire, and you've been producing, and we expect this is the beginning, not the end. Again, to all of our citizens, all of our citizens watching us, thank you for participating. This is indeed a living document, and we're living history together. We're going to work through this together. I think we got to make sure we continue being very real, helping everyone understand the urgency of the moment, the gravity of the moment, but also making sure people understand that we're hopeful, we're prayerful. We're going to get through this, but we can only do it if we do it together. So let's keep sacrificing. We can get to the other side. We can get to the other side. Yes, sir.
Move the previous question.
Thank you, Rep. McDowell. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. Wickerman?
Aye.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mr. Vine?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin?
Emphatic aye. Thank
you.
Mayor
Thank you so
Benjamin,
much.
thank you and council so much for your support to this community. We will have guidelines for you all next week.
All right, fantastic. All right, is there a non-debatable motion to adjourn?
So
So
moved.
move.
Is there a second? Moving second, any discussion with the previous question? Clerk, call the roll.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Mr. Wickerman?
Aye.
Mr. McDowell?
Yes.
Mr. Duval?
Aye.
Mr. Vine?
Aye.
Mr. Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Benjamin?
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon.
Have a good weekend, everyone. Be safe.
Say,
Be safe.
Bye-bye.
Everybody be safe.
They can't see me. Bye, y'all. Y'all can't see us, but we're waving.